Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Maker's Bar, who are on a mission to create and raise 1 million leaders. Our special guest today is Irosha de Silva, founder and CEO of Marketrix. Irosha, thank you so much for sparing some of your time to come on and talk about your career and your business.
Hey Rob, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start with this. Tell me about your early career and how you got to doing what you're doing.
So essentially, Rob, I've been in all things tech, I would say, since of my early childhood, right? And I've been building, building things, breaking things, different things on the internet, right? Many successfully failed startups, I would say, right? That has, essentially led to this journey. So just to tell you, I in terms of when I finished off schooling, I worked somewhat in the B2B enterprise sales aspect as well, since I had a tech background. And then since I got the exposure into tech selling, I was able to sort of combine them together and then get into the business front, right? So my after all my successfully failed startups, I would say, the previous company that I founded called Creative Hub, right, which is I would say a software um, development agency, right? So which I started off my garage, right, and then recruiting the first developer, and then grew to about a team of, I would say, about 50, right? So then, Marketrix, if you look at it, it comes in initially as a requirement from one of our customers, right? Where they wanted to showcase their capabilities in an interesting and an interactive way to their potential buyers. So it was initially, I would say, built as a sales pitching product, right? It was not even called Marketrix back in the day. It was called the B2B customer virtual experience platform, right? And then only we went about in terms of when we identified, okay, the same requirement is there by many other B2B customers, right? So then we productize it, and then only we got Marketrix to what it is today.
So what does your company do and what is the main product line?
Yeah. So, Marketrix, it's a simple website plugin, right? We are driving the product towards the future of sales, I would say, right? So, and it's a simple website plugin that would enable an AI sales avatar, right, on your website. That would basically meet with the site visitors, greet them, right, and basically, it would act as a website concierge, I would say, right? Sort of directing and guiding the site visitors to different sections of the site, right? Understanding the site visitors requirement, right? And then basically so see, I've been in enterprise sales, and then I've been doing, I would say, hundreds of sales pitches, right? A lot of them, if you look at it, what sales people do, they are about 70 to 80% it's repetition, right? So Marketrix, basically, it takes away this repetition that needs to be done by the sales teams, right? And then where we give the ability to the sales teams to focus on exactly what is needed, which is exactly solving customers problems, right? So that repetition aspect can be taken over by Marketrix's AI sales avatar. So that's what our product is all about.
What were your significant challenges that you faced in the initial stages of your business and how did you overcome them?
So Rob, to tell you about the challenges, right? It is see now. I mean, I am initially my previous company, now still we are fully bootstrapped, I would say, right? We still haven't. And now we are working on closing our seed round of funding, right? So we've been mostly self funding the product, right? So and my other company, Creative Hub, right, it's a service business, right? So the main challenge I would say is, Rob, shifting from because the service mindset is completely different from a product mindset, right? If you know what I'm talking about, right? So how you would need to be running a service business as opposed to how you should be running a product based business is these are two completely different things, right? So the main challenge I would say that I had to overcome is basically I would say myself, right? So then that is essentially speaking, how can I shift from once whereas I was having this service oriented mindset, shifting it into a product oriented mindset, right? Because how the two operating models it would work is completely different, right? So and then the main hurdles I would say, after we got the product out there, and then after we got the initial traction into the product with our initial set of customers as well, right? Then the next thing was how can this product be scaled, right? Because as I told you before, the product started as an initial requirement from one of our customers, right? And then we realized, okay, this requirement is there of many of the other customers as well, right? So it was repeatable, right? But even though it was repeatable, we so this was with our initial model um, of uh, of this interactive sales pitching platform, the initial version of Marketrix, right? But we realized we came into a bottleneck where this is not really scalable as per se, right? So that's essentially where we had to utilize the same technology that we were using, right? But we needed to pivot, right? To because the limitation that our customers found was, okay, the base version of the product, it requires manpower, it requires their own sales teams to be speaking to site visitors manually, right, one by one, which they don't really have manpower, right? So this is where with the advancements in AI and utilizing the core technology that we had, we pivoted the product to become to make it actually an AI driven avatar based product that essentially goes hand in hand with sales teams, and we are driving the product towards the future of hybrid sales, I would say.
What has been your most satisfying moment in business so far?
I think the most satisfying moment of me is is satisfying moment that any founder would be having, Rob. That is essentially the point where your product gets adopted by users, right? Because when you think about a product, Rob, you basically, and as a founder you basically live, breathe, eat, sleep in it, right? And I mean this is all mostly in your head, right? But I mean, yes, you put it into action, into code and into building the product, right? But at the same time, how, the main satisfaction it comes in this whole concept and all the hard work, the blood, sweat and the tears that you've been putting into this, right? When it starts to be adopted by users, right? When that market validation actually happens, okay, this whole concept that you've been dreaming 24/7, it is actually solving a practical problem out there. I would say that's a main satisfaction that a founder would mainly be getting, wrong.
What are the key values that your company represents, and how do you ensure that they are upheld?
So I mean, in terms of values, if you really are you speaking from a team standpoint, or um, like are you referring from a team standpoint, or is it what sort of standpoint are you talking about?
I guess the key values of the company, the way you treat people, the way you treat
Right.
customers, think, about like that.
Right. So in terms of values, if you think about it, I mean, we are driving towards the future of hybrid sales, right? So we need to put the salesperson to the front, right? What are the actual problems that sales, because if you really think about I mean, because our users are of two fronts, right? One is, of course, like, we are solving a problem for sales teams, right? Where they do not really need to solve, like, say, I mean, keep on repeating the same things over and over again to, like, potential buyers, right? And at the same time, if you think about from a potential buyer standpoint, how can they get instantaneous support, right? So the main value that we need to put into the front is, like, okay, because, like, the main thing that we would need to put into the front is in terms of salesperson. How can, like, the salesperson be in the front, right? How can they be the main driver of our product, right? And, like, how can we drive this towards the future of sales? So those are the main like, focus that we are aiming at, Rob.
All right. How do you define success for yourself and your business?
So as a founder, Rob, I think success for myself, right, and then success of business, these are mainly intermingled together, right? So essentially speaking, like, say, your company, like, as a founder, this is where your identity stands. Is, like, where you put in not just 24 hours, right? I think it's even more than 24 hours that you put in making this a success, right? So it is to a great extent, like, your company's success would become your success, right, to a great degree. But at the same time, like, I mean, yes, that is, like, one main success criteria that I would be having. But at the same time, like, like, say, the personal satisfaction would essentially come in when you know that your what you built, it has made an impact in the world, right? And, like, how can like, how can we be on that mission in terms of, like, making an impact, right? So the moment when, like, I get to know that because of what you have built, right, there's been an actual impact in the world, I would say that is the main success criteria, like, that I would essentially be having, wrong.
Yeah. How do you handle adversity and doubt?
So when you think about as a startup founder, I think adversity and doubt is something that you mainly live by, right? So because, like, I mean, how many number of doubts are there, and, like, how many number of adversities are there? So uh, when you think about it, I mean, whether your product would work, whether what you are doing is right or wrong, right? Whether what you would build right now, would that be having actual traction? Would the customers, like, really be adopting it, and, like, are we able to really generate revenue? Would the investors, like, find value, right, in jumping onto this journey and, like, making this a massive company, right? So I think, like, there's a lot of doubt, right, and adversity that, like, we us as founders, we need to live by, right? So when you speak about adversity, right, so, okay, you build and ship a particular feature, and then you realize, okay, this is not really what customers wanted, right? Even though we thought, like, all along, and we've ideated, we prototype, we put in a lot of, like, development hours in terms of, like, getting this off the ground, and then also marketing money in terms of making like, getting this product out there as well, right? So so, like, say, because ultimate decision maker in terms of a product is essentially the market, and, like, the user base that is about to use your product, right? So like, so there's a lot of, like, adversity that could come in, right? That is also when you really think about, like, the competition, right? Say, because you're, like, you being like a startup founder, right? So, and us being also in the sales space, right? Can Salesforce, right, being, like, this like multi-billion-dollar company ship this as a simple feature, right, tomorrow itself, right? So I would say, Rob, like, I mean, these used to be questions, like, that really kept me up at night, and still they do, don't get me wrong, right? But as, like, you move forward in the journey, you start to embrace them, right? So you really start to embrace them, and then like, with that, you start to, like, sort of, I would say, build resilience as well, right? So whenever and, like, you face an like, a fact of adversity, right, you are also able to take it as an opportunity, right? For an example, right, say, okay, if your previous product that you shipped, if that's not really been adopted by the market, that's a good opportunity of for us to validate the product, right? And, like, okay, can we get that learnings, right, to, basically speaking, like, either pivot, or, like, use the same technology and like, shape it into something else, right? Because us as techies, I don't think, like, there's nothing that's impossible for us, right? So anything's possible, right? So within the tech space, right? So like, so I mean, if you have that mindset in terms of embracing adversity, right, and, like, in terms of treating each of these problems that might come in your way as opportunities to grow, I would say that's the best mindset for you to inculcate, to get things in the right direction, Rob.
Can you share a failure that later became a success or a valuable lesson?
So absolutely. Now, I mean, if you think about, I was telling you the story of, like, the initial version of Marketrix. It was like, we were, sorry, implementing them as interactive customer virtual experience platforms, right? And yes, like, that same model that we implemented to the initial few customers, we realized, like, okay, the same thing, same need is there by the other customers also, right? So what did we do? Like, we even doubled down on our efforts in making that initial experience, right, more scalable. But then we realize, like, this version what we are creating, it's sort of becoming uh, going towards sort of to be a competitor of Zoom or Google Meet or MS Teams, right? Which like, none of our customers found, like, I mean, none of our like, say, next level of customers found to be valuable, right? And, like, even the investors, they did not really see, okay, how the hell are you going to go head on with Zoom or Google Meet or MS Teams, right? So that's when, like, I mean, I would say, us, even though we really doubled down on that initial insight that we got from our initial user base, uh, that alone, it was not really enough, right? I mean, maybe it was the fact that the timing was wrong also, right? Say, because, like, the AI wave was just coming up, right? And, like, all the like, say, from the product traction standpoint, a lot of the companies are shifted towards the AI front, and VC money is pouring down into all the AI companies, right? So with all of that, probably speaking, I would say the time that we doubled down on that insight, it was wrong, right? But what did we do? We picked ourselves up, right? And but we used the same technology that we were using, right? In building this, like, this interactive customer virtual experience platforms, right? Interactive sales pitching platforms, I would say, into creating the current AI avatar version that we have, right? And we made it super easy for anyone to access it, but by making it a simple website plugin, right? So rather than, like, having to book a demo with us, so, like, go through, like, a long sales cycle to implement, we made it super easy, right? But this was actually using that same core technology that we initially had, right? And then, like, only we made it more relevant to the current context, to the current market needs, right? And to the trend where, like, software products are heading. So I would say, like, this is because we had a, like, major point of, like, thought of failure, right? Okay, like, even though we had this initial success, now this is not really scaling forward, right? So that decision to pivot, I would say that was a very good decision that we took, right? Where it helped us to get in the right trajectory.
How do you foster innovation and creativity within your organization?
So one thing, like, one ethos that we live by is, Rob, build for the future but do well today, right? So now, how can you have, because how can you have the mindset in terms of innovation, right? In terms of what's going to come in the future, but at the same time, what is current? What, like, what can we do best right now to, like, make sure that we are doing well today? So this aspect of, like, this ethos of building for the future but doing well today, this is the main, like, ethos that we live by, that, like, that helps us to steer our pathway towards innovation.
I like that answer. What is your long term vision for the company?
So this is headed towards the future of hybrid sales, I would say, right? So, I mean, like, we have this podcast running as a selling with a robo, right? So, how can, like, how can Marketrix become that companion, right? The of the salesperson to, like, essentially sell hand in hand with AI, right? So like, if you really think about the long term future, how can how can a salesperson be going to a meeting with Marketrix's AI robo, right? And then, like, be handling the sales conversation, right? That's sort of the ultimate like, long term vision where we are going about.
How do you approach risk in your business?
um So risk, like, as I told before as well, Rob, like, we need to embrace risk, right? And, like, whenever we need to have that mindset, like, okay, no failure is end of the road, right? So you could be failing now, right? But there is always, like, a way for us to like, learn from it and then essentially, like, move forward, right? So but at the same time, like, the main thing is now with this whole AI drive that is going about, right? Things are changing in a super fast pace, right? So if you're also not fast enough, right, then you are at the risk of, like, being obsolete without you even knowing it, right? So so I would say the main way to avoid risk is to essentially fail fast, right? Because you can never avoid failure, right? But you can only fail fast, right? Learn from it and then iterate and then move forward. So in that way, you are really mitigating, right? So us being, especially in the technology space, right? The risk of being obsolete, because that's, I would say, the risk that, like, that most of the industries, like, have been faced now with the age of AI coming in.
Yeah. Can you describe your leadership style and how you cultivate your team culture?
So my leadership style is, I would say, I mean, I am more of a servant leader, I would say, right? So I am, like, working very much hands on with the team. I get into the problem, right? And, like, I try to, like, work the problem, like, work out the problem along with the team, right? And then, like, essentially come out of it, right? So like, and then the culture, if you really look at it, like, it's a culture that we where we really embrace failure, right? As I told before as well. And, like, how we are able to really fail fast and, like, move forward while we create an innovative like, fostering an innovative environment.
How has your business evolved since you first started?
So I would say, like, it has evolved drastically, right? Because as I said, the initial version of Marketrix, it was essentially, um, it was more of a custom deployment that we were doing, right? So if it's your business, we would be understanding what your business's need would be in terms of our product, and we would sort of be doing a custom development, right? Into that, and it was more of, like, it's as a sales pitching platform, right? It was essentially going about, right? So then from there to what it is right now, which is like, a SaaS AI product, which anyone can basically adopt and use from their website, right? And like, get AI capabilities into your website. So I would say things have, like, evolved quite drastically. That is mainly because we've been able to fail fast, right? And also pivot at the times that was needed to make it to where it is right now today, Rob.
Can you tell me about a book or a mentor or an event that significantly influenced you?
Yes, so I'll tell a, like, a quote that has really changed my life during the, I would say, past year or so, right? So the quote essentially says, "Life is the dancer, and you are the dance." Right? So let me repeat that. Life is the dancer, and you are the dance, right? So this is in the book, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, right? So so what this essentially says is, Rob, like, now, I mean, we like to think and we like to believe that we have control over everything that is around us, right? Which is essentially a lie, right? So we do not have control over what is, like, what the market conditions would be if we are talking on a business sense, but the same applies for life as well, right? uh, we have no control over the outcomes, right? But we are only able to steer the direction, right? So until, like, I heard this particular quote. This was actually quoted by one of my good friends and a mentor as well, like a fellow entrepreneurial friend, Sahan Bakmi Weber, right? Who is like, doing a vegan, like, vegan startup, right? Like, with vegan, like, towards agricultural direction. So so then, like, this was actually quoted by him, like, told to me by him, so which really impacted my life, Rob, because until I heard this particular quote, I used to really think that I have control over everything that's around me. I have control over the business that's around me, right? But like, from, like, after I heard this, then I realized I do not really have the control over the outcomes, right? I am only able to sort of steer the direction so that the outcomes are manifested. So that is, like, one particular quote and a book that has really changed my life during the last, like, years time, I would say.
What are the most critical skills that you believe an entrepreneur needs to succeed?
um, I would say resilience is one of the main skills, right? So I mean, and that's something that's very tough to adopt as well, right? So like, say, because, like, as a startup founder, as I told before, so, like, there are a lot of adversity, lot of, like, challenges that we need to go through, right? But, like, you need to be resilient enough, right? So that, like, you are able to face those challenges in a, like, very strong manner. So I would say the main skill that any founder would need to really adopt is resilience.
What advice would you give to someone wanting to start their own company?
I would say just start, right? So
Just start?
because, because, like, there are two types of people, right? So because, like, what I've come into realization is, like, say, the, like, I mean, the most likelihood is that the your first one or two startups are going to fail anyways, right? it would be, you are very lucky that if your first one or two startups have really worked out, right? But when you look at the majority of the founders that have really made it, right, it is not their first startup that has actually, like, worked out, right? So my simple advice would be just start, right? So if you have, like, if it's a first time founder, then, like, if you have some sort of an idea that makes some sense, right? It might not make sense all the way through, right? It is not supposed to, because then you're not founding anything at the end of the day, right? It's just like, it really exists out there, right? So my simple advice is, like, just start, right? Yes, it is important to take calculated risk, but just start.
All right, that's the final question.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, Rob. Really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate your time, and have a good evening, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. See you there. Bye.